Welcome young, welcome old to a new epic episode of Mac Music Review. In this episode, we're looking back at the best albums of 2014. And this was a weird year for me in terms of music criticism because I really had not heard a lot of the albums on this list until I was making this video. And so I listened to a ton of music in a fairly short period of time when my mind was just set on making this list. So, you're gonna see some weird. If anything on this list is kind of weird to you, or you're like, oh, that's too low or that's too high, or what about all of these other amazing albums that you haven't mentioned? It's gonna be because maybe I haven't heard the most. Honestly, out of all of my lists, this is the one I've been the least prepared for. All of the other ones I had more. And then my best albums of the 2000s, I did not do a lot of research because I just picked albums that were like in my mind and that albums that I remember being great or that I heard were amazing. But I didn't do like I mostly picked albums I was familiar with. I didn't listen to like much new music at all for my best of the 2000s. Maybe I'll redo that list one day in the future. But anyway, let's talk about 2014. We're going to start with the honorable mentions, which we'll do kind of rapid fire fast, and then I'll slow down and talk more when we get into the top 10. But here are the honorable mentions. My first honorable mention is the album Our Love by Caribou. This is a really good album. It's a really good electronic music album. But I think there was better electronic music released in 2014. One very specific release in mind, and another album that sort of could fall into that category. Anyway, it was still really good, but I just think there was better music in the same genre that came out that definitely overshadowed this album. Salad Days by Mac DeMarco. Just got into this a few days ago actually, and I was really impressed with it. It's a very solid indie singer-songwriter. It's not really like blowing me away, but it is very pleasant and it's very nice, and it's just good. You know? 1989 by Taylor Swift. I think this is probably the biggest, meaning the most popular and successful album of, this decade of the 2010s. I think it was the biggest album. It had so many hits. It could not be escaped in pop culture. The music from that movie was in so many trailers. It was on the radio years and years after the album was released. This album was just inescapable in its popularity. It won the Grammy for Best Album like 2 years after it was released. Like it won Best Album of 2015 when it was released the first day of 2014. That is insane. The Grammys are really whack. That's really stupid. But it won, and it's a very, very solid pop album. I dare say the best pop album of 2014. Let's say it. That works. And then there's the album LP1 by FKA Twigs. This is a really solid R&B album. I don't really like R&B, which is why it's in honorable mention, not in the top 10, but it's solid as far as R&B goes. It's pretty great in its own way. Too Bright by Perfume Genius. Once again, this is an artist that I just cannot get into. I cannot get into this man. I cannot. He has had no presence on any of my other top 10 lists, even though he's one of the most critically acclaimed artists of this decade. I just can't get into him. But I did like this album a lot. I listened to this all the way through. I thought it was really good. Pom Pom by Ariel Pink. Man, this album is mixed like trash. It sounds like trash. The vocals are so annoying. I was listening to this album and I kept unplugging my earbuds because I thought there was something wrong with the audio quality of my earbuds, but it wasn't. It's just the way the album is mixed. If the vocals didn't sound so bad, this would honestly be a really, really great album, and it's very creative. It's very cool. It just is mixed like trash. And that's it for all the honorable mentions. My number 10 is going to be a lot of people's number 1. Because of the bald man. The melon head gave this album a 10. Why? He's reviewed hundreds of albums on the channel, and he decided to give this trashy, stupid album a 10. I'm going to be, full disclosure, I have not finished the album. It's like 2.5 hours long or whatever. It's pretty long, at least 2 hours. I think it's more like 2.5. It's a long album, and it's hard to listen to, and it's unpleasant, but it is very, very good. Objectively speaking, fantastic album. Objectively, one of the best albums of 2014. Very impressive, long, drony music that I can't get into. Okay, enough said. Lost in the Dream by The War on Drugs. The War on Drugs is one of those bands where I'm not a fan, but I want to be a fan. That's what it is. It's one of those bands that I really want to know a lot about. One of those bands I want to listen to all the time. And it's one of those bands that I just can't. I'm just not, I'm not doing it. Every time I put one of their songs on, I'm loving it. Every time I put one of their albums on, I think it's amazing. And then I just don't come back to it. And I don't listen to it consistently. But I really need to change that, especially once I heard Lost in the Dream. I listened to it more than I ever have before, like this week. And it's so good. It's just super, once again, kind of, not like Swans, but it's very long, drawn out alternative or indie rock music that has a lot of emotion behind it. But instead of being really abrasive and uncomfortable and hard to listen to, it actually is very pleasant and sounds very good and very warm and welcoming, but also packed with emotion. And it's really, really great stuff. Highly recommend this album. Pinata by Freddie Gibbs. Fantano was a big fan of this one. He was really, really messing with this album. He thought it was crazy good. And you know what? I don't think it's as good as he thinks it is, but I think it is a darn great album. And to me, and people are going to like this, I don't think Freddie Gibbs is the best. I am not a huge Freddie Gibbs fan. I thought that his 2020 album, Alfredo, was very, very good. And I think this is even better. I actually think this is even better because of the Madlib production. Madlib is an absolute murderer. I mean, he just absolutely slays the production. This album is one of the best produced rap albums. I just think it's not that interesting from a lyrical perspective or a vocal perspective. Like, Freddie Gibbs to me is not that interesting of a presence. I think he does a really fantastic job on, why can't I say it? Alfredo. But the production on this is better. And it's just a fantastic album. This is a really Pinata quality rap album. But I liked A Toothpaste Suburb by Milo better. And I just got to say that this is 100% my thing. It's like an art / indie rap album with super, super quirky bars, just over the top, like pop culture references, and super smart, intelligent muses. This, on the other hand, though, out of Milo's discography, is like his fun album. It's more fun and funny. They have like a whole song about farting. It's like a serious song, like from a musical perspective, but like it's the lyrical content could not be goofier. And yeah, it's not gonna. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't like this album, but I personally really like it. It's just really fun, creative from a lyrical perspective, from a vocal perspective, from a musical perspective, and I just like this guy. I like Milo. I like Rap Ferreira. I like, I guess I like Scallops Hotel, whatever. This man has a lot of names. I like this album a lot. St. Vincent's self-titled album made a huge splash in 2014. It won the Grammy for Best Alternative Album. It got massive critical acclaim. People were just absolutely loving this album. It ranked very high on a lot of people's lists of the best albums of 2014, and for good reason. It is a darn fantastic album in terms of alternative music, singer-songwriter. I guess it's I said 1989 was the best pop album because that's the best, like, conventional pop album. This doesn't feel fair to put it in that genre, even though it kind of is that. It's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than the genre of pop can offer. It really does defy that genre, I would say. And it's a really fantastic album. Really great, really great music. Very good vocals. Solid lyrics, but I do think that is the weakest aspect of the album. But really fantastic vocals and music, production make up for the sometimes not great lyrics. Before preparing for this list, I've never heard of the album Faith in Strangers by Andy Stott. I've never heard of Andy Stott. And then I was going through Pitchfork's top 50 albums, and this was like in the top 40 of their top 50, and I listened to it, and I loved it. On first listen, I have come back to this and I think it is absolutely fantastic. This is a almost entirely instrumental record that creates this vibe. It's kind of long, it only has 9 songs, but the songs are kind of lengthy. And it really does take you to this other world. It's one of those albums that transports you as the best electronic music should. And it just fills up your brain and it just makes you trip out. It's so weird. And it's so investing. Like, you get so invested into the musical soundscapes. And it's an album that not enough people are talking about. It's one of the most underrated albums of 2014. Like, people need to hear this. It's pretty fantastic. Please listen to it. You probably won't regret it. You're Dead by Flying Lotus is the best electronic music album of 2014. Which, it's saying a lot that I would put this above Faith in Strangers, which I guess technically is an electronic music album because there's no, it's all like, I guess, computer generated for the most part, and it doesn't have a lot of vocals, and it doesn't really fit in any other genre, so that counts, I guess. But You're Dead is an absolute classic at this point. It is a Flying Lotus album, and it's worth saying that I do not listen to a lot of electronic music, but this album blew my socks off. Some of the songs have this fusion with rap music, and it's always great when they have a rapper on here. Snoop Dogg is on a song, Kendrick is on a song, like old Kendrick. To Pimp a Butterfly had already been, Good Kid, Mad City had already been around at that point. But this is just really, really impressive electronic music that somehow sounds spontaneous and organic and real, despite the fact that it was made on a computer. It's a very, very impressive album. It feels like it's a living, breathing album in terms of the music. It sounds like jazz, but it's electronic music. And people have described Flying Lotus as electronic jazz, and I think this is the best example of that. You gotta check this album out. It's pretty awesome. At number 3, I have the best Run the Jewels album. And Run the Jewels, if you've watched my top 10 lists of the year for several years, including 2020 and 2016, or was it 2017? Of 2016. I'm a big Run the Jewels fan. I really like their stuff, and I think that this is their best album. It's fantastic. It is both them at their most abrasive and violent and insane and gangster. Songs like Lie, Cheat, Steal, the opening track Jeopardy. And it's also them at their coolest with songs like Angel Duster, Close Your Eyes. And then it's also them at their most emotional and really feeling this sense of emotion and depth and maturity with songs like Crown and All My Life. And it's a crazy album. This album is a trip. There's so many different things going on, and it's just such a cool album. It's so much energy, and it makes you feel so awesome while you're listening to it, but also has those emotional moments that work very, very well. That's it. Just listen to the album. Becoming Who We Are by King's Kaleidoscope. Okay, so on the music review website, Jesus Freak Hideout, they have this section of 5-star albums, and there's quite a few on that list. Most of them, the website is more active, of course, in the 2010s when they had more staff and everything. It's a website that reviews Christian music. It can be Christian rap, it can be Christian metal, Christian alternative, gospel music, and just Christian contemporary music. Anything that has the Christian label, they will review it. And even if it's loosely attached to the label, they will review it. Meaning 21 Pilots and stuff. But this was, until 2017, this was the highest rated, the most 5-star reviews of any album on the entire site, I believe. I'm pretty sure. And it shows when you listen to it. It's one of the best Christian albums, just Christian albums in general, ever made. There's so much emotion, so much musical depth and variety, amazing vocals, so much passion in this project. It's got 17 tracks, several interludes, and just so much. There's so much going on here, and it's such an investing record. And I said that a lot throughout this, but this is something you'll get emotionally attached to if you listen to it a lot, and it's very, very special. I don't listen to it that often. I don't want to wear it out. I used to listen to it a lot, but it's pretty amazing. Believe it or not, Supermodel by Foster the People is my number 1 album. What am I thinking? Am I a crazy person or something? Hear me out. This is one of the most underrated albums ever made. and I'm not saying like under like heard albums. Like there's a difference between underrated and like people don't know about it, because people know about this. Foster the People was huge after their first album. And to this day, I still hear songs from this album, like when I'm out places. Like I was in Florida, like getting ice cream, and I heard a song playing on one of the radio stations that I hadn't heard. And then I was at Dairy Queen, and I heard one of their songs from this album. And I've been at places and heard music from this album. It's crazy. Even though I haven't really heard it on the radio. This is the follow-up to their, very, very popular and successful, debut album. And it's just amazing. Lyrically, it tells a story. I'm not going to spoil what the story is. It's extremely deep and in-depth and beautiful and amazing. And, yeah, it's just, I just want you to listen to it. I don't want to talk about it. My favorite album of 2014, one of my favorite albums. Just in general. Sorry about that. I like this a lot. It's very underrated. Yeah. In the description of this video, I will try to link my underrated albums video, because that's a good one. If you also love the album Supermodel, you should check that out, because I talk about other albums that have gotten mediocre reviews from critics, or even negative reviews, that I think are really great. Also, I'll link my Foster the People albums ranked in here, if I can remember. What else? That's all. That's all I'll link in the description. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you have a great rest of your day.